Hey guys, Mank here. So today we're going to be talking about everything is temporary, and that's because everything is temporary. Pretty straightforward, that's how I like it, and that's how we're going to talk about things. And of course, as soon as I start talking, it starts raining. So, if it puts you to sleep, my bad. And, what a great way to start the video, I guess. But yeah, so everything's temporary. So we all go through our little challenges in life, our trials and tribulations, whatever that may be. It could be, stressing about a new job, stressing about school, work, your girlfriend, your mom's chores or whatever. But in the end, everything is temporary. So all this stress and all this pain that you feel, it's only going to last a certain amount of time before you get over it and, eventually you move on to bigger and better things. For me, I recently just got divorced and pretty crazy experience, I'm not going to lie, because one, I wasn't really expecting it, and two, I wasn't really expecting it. So, for me, I thought that this was going to last forever. Like, obviously, the pain that I was feeling hurt a lot, but you just can't let that get to you. Because at the end, it's temporary. I'm sure I'll find a new wife or something, or at least a girlfriend, hopefully, bro. Like, I think my game's on point where I can still do that. I don't think I lost it all, but in the event that it doesn't, everything's temporary. So I got to enjoy all that, and then I had to not enjoy it whenever I actually got divorced, and it was just a pretty crappy experience. But you move on, and like now, I'm good. It's been about 2 months, and I think pretty much healed from this situation. Thank God. So, if you're going through a breakup or something, you just got to tell yourself it's temporary because at the end of the day, I'm sure you're gonna have another boyfriend or girlfriend, and you know, it's these feelings that you have, they don't last forever. They go away after a little bit of time, and you start feeling like yourself again. With that said, there's a lot of things in life where they kind of seem impossible to get through. Um, like like I just said, a breakup. That's something that kind of resonates with you, maybe for a long period in your life, just because maybe I don't know how long that person and you were together, and it could have felt like forever, even though it really wasn't. Like it was only like 2 years for me, so I think it wasn't that hard to move on. But in the case where it's like 15 or 30 years, I think it might take a little bit more time, but you're still going to recover from it. You're still going to find something that'll get you out of that hole. And I think really what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't matter how low you can go because the high will always be there. Another thing with that is about being high. I used to smoke a lot. Like, dude, like the amount of smoke I would breathe in, or I had breathed in, was probably like close to the clouds of Chernobyl. That's how much it was, dude. Like, it was probably like 2 blunts a day, one in the morning, one at night, and I couldn't function without it. But I've been off for about 2 months now, basically since my divorce, and dude, I'm not gonna lie, like that feeling of weed just disappeared. Like, don't get me wrong, I still miss it, but in the first like couple weeks, I thought I was going crazy because I didn't have anything to smoke, and it was a temporary feeling, because eventually you resonate back to your normal state, your homeostasis, and there's going to be points where your homeostasis gets increased or it gets decreased depending on the circumstance that you're in. Maybe you get sick and your level of homeostasis goes down, or maybe you get a better job and so your living gets better. which means a better homeostasis. Whatever it may be, I think that just being able to finally have something like to resonate with, that everything is temporary, no matter what it is. I actually used to tell my ex-wife that, like, every single day, that everything is temporary. I said, our relationship, it may not be here forever. Everything's temporary. I might die, you might die. And fortunately, it didn't come to that circumstance, but unfortunately, it came to a different one. And, I kind of spoke it into existence. Maybe I did. Uh, I'm not really, like, superstitious, but, it could be like that. Who really knows, to be honest? But if you have any stress or anything, you know, it might help to deal with it head on. But, like, if you think there's no way out, you gotta remember, you gotta think about the time before that stress occurred. How peaceful you were and how not miserable you were. Um, because to be honest, like, I think the thing that's helped me, especially with smoking, is I used to think about the times before I smoked and just how much better, like, in my mind I was. And it was just a lot better than what it was when I was smoking, or, or after the fact. So I just had to, like, come back to that point in my life where I was like, enough is enough. And, I finally stopped, which is something that's good. Um, Another thing is, if you have like an embarrassing moment, like you say you too to the girl at work or something, whenever she says, "Do you want popcorn?" Um, it's probably gonna resonate with you for a little bit, and you might stay up or something because of it. But no one's gonna remember that moment forever. I mean, maybe that one person will, but like, it's not like it's gonna go anywhere. It's not like they're gonna go tell the news and then you're just blasted on Fox News for the rest of your life and you're just miserable. Right? That's not how it works. Um, so if you go through something embarrassing, like one time I was running to the restroom at Walgreens because I low key, like, I was driving all day from door dashing and I was like, bro, I gotta go use the restroom. And thankfully, I was able to. But I did it in my pants, which was not the best moment. And I had to walk out feeling like shame. And I was just like, bro, this is miserable. But then looking back on it, you know, besides talking about it, everybody was working. It's not like they really are going to remember that experience for the rest of their life. Like, I can't remember a handful of times, maybe, of the experiences I had when I worked at Chili's or in the pharmacy for that matter of fact. Um, it really kind of just shows that you're not really the main character in anybody else's life but your own. And, all those experiences you go through are just temporary, because you're going to have a gazillion more. That experience was about 2 minutes long. Guess what? You've already sat through 8 minutes of this video. So, that's 4 times that amount of time. You know what I mean? So, when you look at it in retrospect, it's not really that big of a deal. And it's kind of hard to get, like, it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around that when you're in the moment. And that's kind of just my philosophy, is that everything is temporary, even though it may not seem like it. Um, I I really don't know what else to base this on, to be honest, because I think it's just kind of everything in life. Whether that's getting a bad grade in your class, or, you know, just having a bad day at work. It's going to be temporary. You'll have 1,000 better other days. Or, someone made a comment about your hair, you had a bad hair day, or, your acne is not doing the best, or even like your physique. If you work out and your body like just isn't where it wants to be, that's temporary, right? I mean, you're gonna be shredded eventually. You gotta believe that, or your face is gonna clear up eventually. But it's that process that I think that going through that process is something that we're able to enjoy, like because of the process, not because of the results. I mean, obviously we want to get the results, but it's going through that process is what makes us like learn from our experiences, you know? And I think that's why when you think that everything is temporary, it kind of helps you see the bigger picture and everything about what you went through, like, what you witnessed, and how you handled it. And to know that everything is temporary makes you handle it like 1,000 times better. So once you start doing that, you're kind of golden in life. It doesn't really matter where you stand at. Um, everything's gonna be temporary. So everything's just gonna be either gone or it'll come back to you. You just gotta give it some time. And I know I keep talking about like bad times, like miserable times, but this also applies to being like, I guess, better, better in life. Like that, where your position is right now, you may be like in the best spot you've ever been in your life, but that's also temporary. Your health is going to decline eventually. Um, your finances, with the way the world's going, there's no telling on where you're gonna like where your money's gonna go. I mean, gas is already up like to 3.60. So, what if it goes up to $8? Who knows? But everything's temporary. Even though it sucks, you gotta embrace the suck and then enjoy the fruits of the suck. So, with that being said, I hope that you learned a little more about life in general. I try not to make this video too long just because I feel like I would keep on repeating myself like every 2 seconds, just saying everything's temporary. But, it is. And for that, you gotta just go through it one day at a time and 1 hour at a day, 1 minute at an hour. You know what I mean? Like, it's all gonna pass away eventually. Uh, you know, there's so many things, so many examples of this. Like, I guess what is it? It's the thing in Rome. It's like, dude, I'm not a freaking architect. I couldn't tell you, but the Colosseum. That's what it is. My bad. It was great and mighty back in its day, but look at it now. It's all ripped apart, tearing apart. The Twin Towers. As much as everyone makes jokes about that, it's it's obliterated now. So that was a temporary thing that we had. Um, standards, protocols, those are all going to be temporary. Rules, you know, weed was banned in like every state. Now it's legal in California. What I mean is that things aren't always what they seem right now, or they're not always going to seem what they seem right now. So, with that, if you're young or if you're old, it doesn't really matter. But you got to think that if you're in a bad spot right now, it could be worse, but it can also be so much better. And it's really only up to you to make that happen. Obviously God plays a big part in that too because, he controls everything. But for you going through your day-to-day life, um everything is temporary. So just keep that in mind next time you're going through something and you get super stressed out. Um, you just gotta remember that everything's temporary, man. If you're going on a bad date and you're like, man, I hope this date like ends soon so I can go home and pop on Fortnite with the boys, buddy. Believe it or not, give it an hour or two, it'll be time. You know, I like to think about it like when I go to the doctor's office with my grandma. I'm like, man, this place reeks and it sucks, and I cannot wait to go home. And then I'm home and I forget all about being at the doctor's the whole day. You know, because everything's temporary. It's all gonna pass through and pass away or pass over. One of those three. So, with that in mind, hope you learned something. And, you know,